And in today's transmission, we are going to be getting into a lot of stuff, but most importantly, the Gaza ceasefire. It looks like there's a peace deal on the table. I'm going to give you my opinion on it and whether or not it's actually being upheld. We're going to also talk about how Trump brought forth how he signed an executive order back in August stating that flag burning, the American flag burning, should be illegal. He had a roundtable discussion and he made some controversial quotes about it. We're going to dive into the history of flag burning and my questions around this decision, if you will. We have Pam Bondi going out and say that they want to do to Antifa what they are currently doing to cartels and why that is such a troubling statement to make. And then we're going to talk about the Nobel Peace Prize. I've given you my slight take beforehand on the Nobel Peace Prize and how Donald Trump fits into the picture. And lastly, we're going to finish this off with one of the first things, and maybe one of the most criminal things, that the U.S. government, the U.S. military, the Department of Defense, now known as the Department of War, decided to do for the first time in U.S. history. And spoiler alert, it is not good for the American people. So, with all that being said, let's start off with the Gaza ceasefire. So, we have the ceasefire. If you looked it up, there was a 20-point plan that we had, and Hamas seems to have agreed to it, and thus starts the tens of thousands of people who start their trek back into their homeland, back to where they were, back to the rubble that was left by the Israeli government. However, there were reports that hours after this ceasefire was signed by both the Israeli government and by the by Hamas leadership, that Israel started bombing Gaza, that it was still bombing Gaza even hours after. And there have even been videos that have come out that in the last 48 hours that there were ships, artillery ships, firing on the people making their way back to Gaza. Now, these are unverified sources. I've seen videos. They look accurate, but I think that's something that deserves a deeper dive, but just something to be aware of. And we also have Trump saying that the war is over, which he means genocide, but he used the word war. And so it's a very interesting situation. Israel has even started claiming that they're withdrawing troops from the region because there's this 3-phase rollout where they'll slowly back up. Of course, if Israel actually makes it to that 3rd phase, they will have still shrank the city or the area of Gaza, taking more of the land that it feels like is their intention behind all of this. So what my gut instinct is telling me, number one, is that Trump finally took a stand against Bibi Netanyahu. That's my opinion. My opinion is that he finally, got the cojones and said, look, you have to stop this. My people, the American people, are losing faith in the government because of this. And we have to stop. We have to end this genocide. He probably used the word war, and which could also be characterized by the fact that I think over 600,000 Palestinians confirmed killed, and since October 7th, and I think it was less than 100 that I saw. Definitely less than 1,000. Less than 1,000 IDF soldiers have been killed. So those numbers don't indicate that this is a war by any stretch of the imagination. It indicates a genocide, 100%. Well, that alone does not indicate a genocide, but it does hint towards it. And if you put it together with all the other information, you know what you get. And what was even a little bit more troubling was that Trump came out and said, what did he say? He said something. Oh, it wasn't Trump. It was Steve Witkoff. And there's a video out there of Steve Witkoff, who is surrounded by Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump, that they are in, I believe, Tel Aviv, talking about this peace deal. And they say Benjamin Netanyahu, and the entire crowd erupts into boos. Steve Witkoff is even unable to finish his sentence because of how angry the crowd is about Benjamin Netanyahu. And this further goes to be amplified by the fact that before October 7th, Israel was protesting Benjamin Netanyahu. They were also even going to the extent of prosecuting him for corruption charges. So what will be interesting is, what is the fallout of this? Will Benjamin Netanyahu see his day in court in Israel? Will he see his day in court with the ICC, given that they have prosecuted him for war crimes? Now, I do believe that everyone deserves their fair day in court. The live evidence, the overwhelming evidence that I have seen does seem to indicate he is guilty of war crimes, but of course, it should be all handled within a court of law. And I think it'll be very interesting to see how all of this plays out, because the Israeli people, from all stretch of the imagination, are very excited to get their hostages back, but they are equally excited to get Benjamin Netanyahu out of positions of power. And this was a sentiment that was echoed, if you will, by the hostages as well, where they were thanking Trump. No one was really thanking Netanyahu. So all of this, to me, again, gut reaction, is that Trump played a bigger role in this than what we suspected. At least that's my opinion. That's my takeaway. So kudos to President Trump on that. Now, you know, one of the other top news headlines that came out of maybe not specifically this, but related to this, because I believe on a few podcasts ago, I made a statement that if Trump was able to get peace in Palestine with that genocide occurring, and Ukraine, Russia, then we could consider him for the Nobel Peace Prize. However, the Nobel Peace Prize was given out this last week, and it was given to a Maria Machado. Now, what was interesting, and I don't believe I saw any direct quotes from her, but she essentially dedicated this Peace Prize to Venezuela and to Trump, which I found very fascinating. So, to take a little bit of a step back, number one, Trump wasn't even eligible for this Peace Prize because the nominees for the Peace Prize were presented in January, and it was in January before Trump even took office. So any of these peace deals that he has constructed are not, cannot be considered for this Peace Prize. Now, but what I'm seeing here, and maybe Maria is smarter than we're seeing, because her dedicating this Peace Prize to Trump and Venezuela may actually stop the war that we have with Venezuela, that the United States is trying to start with Venezuela by airstriking the alleged cartel members with alleged drugs in international waters, which is all highly illegal and should definitely be scrutinized to the biggest extent. But if she's able to dedicate this Peace Prize to the both of them, then maybe she's smarter than we think. Maybe this might actually try to be a gap or bridge peace between the United States, specifically the Trump administration, and the Venezuelan government. We don't know for sure. We'll see how that carries out. But there was one troubling thing. There was a troubling thing that Pam Bondi said, and she's had a lot of blunders recently. But one of the blunders that she had is that she said, and I quote, she said she wants to do, quote, same thing to Antifa that was done to cartels, end quote. Now, this is extremely troubling because the Trump administration has killed 21 people in international waters because they allegedly had illegal substances on their boat. And not only that, but there was no due process involved in this at all. And regardless of if Antifa is a terrorist organization, which I feel is there is a gray area, I can see arguments for both sides, you still have your fair day in court. You can't just start drone striking, because that's what they did to the cartel members in international waters. You can't just start drone striking our own people. That might be one of the most evil and craziest things I have ever heard. And so for Pam Bondi, this mixed with getting rid of the First Amendment, which she had a quote about saying she wanted to do, it's very questionable. It makes me think if she's actually trying to drone strike our own people. And if not, then she needs to give more detail around what she means by doing the same thing to Antifa that was done to the cartels. What else would it be? It would be killing without due process. So we really need to investigate those comments more, and I feel as though that's a breach of her duty to take care of the American people, to handle all of this in a diplomatic way. because to me, that is not very, what's the word I'm looking for here? Not good. In short, it is not good. And it's very questionable. And there's something else that is very questionable that I want to dive into here. And that is Trump making it illegal to burn the American flag. Now, for a little bit of context here, on August 25th, 2025, President Donald J. Trump signed an executive order directing the Department of Justice to investigate and prosecute individuals for burning the U.S. flag. Now, I don't know that there was too much conversation about this. There was some whenever it occurred. I don't remember me specifically bringing it up too deep into the podcast, but we're going to dive into it a little bit more in this podcast, in this transmission, because during a White House roundtable where they were talking about Antifa, and this was on October 8th, so this week specifically, I'm recording this on October 11th, so 3 days ago, Trump explicitly said, and I quote, "We took the freedom of speech away because that's been through the courts." And the court said, you have freedom of speech, but what has happened is when they burn the flag, it agitates and irritates crowds. And this is wrong. And this is incorrect on many levels. This is factually incorrect. This is completely wrong in every way. And so let me give you a brief background regarding flag burning and how the Supreme Court has held. In 1948, during a Republican National Convention in Dallas, there was a man by the name of Gregory Lee Johnson. Now, in protest, he did burn a U.S. flag. He then was convicted under Texas law for prohibiting the desecration of the flag. Now, flash forward 5 years later, 1989 in June, in what is known as Texas versus Johnson, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that the burning is protected speech under the First Amendment, and they overturned his conviction, thus invalidating Texas law. The decision sparked major controversy, of course. And then in October 1989, which was a few months later, you have, as a response, Congress trying to pass what was known as the Flag Protection Act of 1989. And it was a federal law that sought to criminalize flag desecration, burning, mutilation, cutting, stuff like that, while aiming to be content neutral to avoid constitutional issues. And the goal of it was to take effect October 28th, 1989. Now, protesters from 89 and 1990, including Sean Eichmann, deliberately burned the U.S. flag to challenge the new law, which honestly, that's pretty ballsy. I mean, hats off to them, because when they did this, it led to massive arrests and legal challenges because they felt that it was free speech to do so, which is very fascinating. It's a very, I feel, ironic situation to be in. I mean, think about it. If you truly like to sit there and burn the flag as an act of your ability to conduct the freedom of speech, your First Amendment, is interesting because you're saying, I love this country so much that we need to uphold the Constitution. You want to challenge the act of burning the flag. I mean, to me, I wouldn't do it, but I think that that's a very interesting approach. And so with this, in June of 1990, so, less than a year later, we have the United States versus Eichmann. The Supreme Court struck down the Flag Protection Act of 1989, reaffirming that flag burning as political expression is protected under the First Amendment. And after 1990, since then, there have been efforts to pass a constitutional amendment to ban flag desecration, they've repeatedly failed because you need the required 2/3 majority in Congress or ratification of 3/4 of states. So it is still protected speech. So for Trump to come out and unilaterally write this executive order, I find to be a very fascinating decision. Why? Why are we taking time to acknowledge this? And to me, it seems as though he wants to use it likely, and I'm assuming because of what Pam Bondi said, he's probably using this so that he can prosecute Antifa for burning the American flag. Now, I find this just crazy. I mean, it seems to me, though, as though if you need to make up that, and I guess I'm straw manning him a little bit here because I'm running off of the assumption that that's what he's doing. But if that's what you need in order to prosecute Antifa, then they're probably not as bad as you think they are. Of course, if they are doing illegal things, if they're plotting coups against the government, whatever it might be, then I consider that a completely legible reason. If they are truly creating terror, when you're doing riots and mass looting, then yes, you should absolutely be prosecuted under those laws. But if they're only exercising their First Amendment rights, then what's the problem? So I find all of that to be extremely strange. And the last thing that I find extremely strange and very disconcerting and very interesting is that Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, as they want to be called now because they think it makes them look more manly, but really it makes them look more evil. And remember, Pete Hegseth is also the one who recently addressed generals, and when he walked off stage and nobody clapped and nobody was interested, and I found that to be very telling of his inability to lead our military. But he recently announced that there will be a Qatari airbase in Idaho. Now, this marks the very first time that any foreign country has had a military base in the United States, in any of our states or territories. And I find that to be one of the most egregious things that we have ever done. We have been saying for so long that China owns a ton of farmlands that are near our military bases and how we need to sell that back. Donald Trump was even was with Dr. Phil when Dr. Phil pointed that out. Trump saw it and said, oh yeah, that's something we should probably, get that back. That's all he said. Nothing done since then. I haven't heard anything about it. And now we have Pete Hegseth giving away land, American land, to a foreign country, and not only to a foreign country, but just a foreign country who's going to put military personnel on that land. And then, ready for the kicker, Qatar also donated a $400 million jet to President Trump. Does that not make it seem like a pay-to-play situation? What are we doing? Why is this our leadership? Where in the world has all of this come to, where we're supposed to be the America first, and yet we're giving our land away to a foreign country to put military bases on our land? Why? What's the strategic ability? In the press conference, Pete Hegseth, Mr. Warhawk, War Machine, decided that it was in our best interest because they had played such a great role in the peaceful negotiation between Hamas and Israel. Meanwhile, Israel bombed one of Qatar's, one of their, I forget exactly what it was, but the consulate, or it wasn't with the consulate, but it was where Hamas was meeting. And so to me, to see all of this playing together, if you will, it seems very sketchy, to say the least. And I feel that we need to completely purge any and all foreign governments that have this much of a hand within the American government, within our soil. This goes for everything from the land that China has surrounding air bases. This goes to the Qatari air base. This goes to AIPAC's control over Congress, who AIPAC just released an ad recently basically saying that they own Congress. They said that we control the Democrats and Republicans, and then we crush anybody who doesn't want to agree with our pro-Israel stance. It's evil stuff, and this is why America is failing. This is why the people feel as though our government has completely let us down. It is decisions like this, time and time again, that have completely destroyed the American dream. It's why the gap between the poor and the wealthy seems to keep increasing. So with all of this, we really have to take back our country. We need to take back our Congress. We have to take back our heart and soul that we have bled and fought for mentally, psychologically, and some people even physically, to keep alive. And yet the sanctity of the American citizens has been placed less than second, maybe fourth or fifth, to foreign countries, to corporations, to all of this, to big tech. It's absolutely criminal what is happening to the American people, and it's not going to stop if you keep voting Republican or Democrat. It's just not. Seriously, they're both controlled by the same people. AIPAC literally admitted it, that they own Congress, and if you try to go against them, they'll take you down. So the point here is that you need to become so powerful and so aware of what is going on that you are able to educate those around you, and they must be able to listen to you. And if you are not powerful, if you don't have money, if you don't have influence, then it's worthless. Nobody will listen to you. Nobody is going to fight for you. Nobody is going to believe in the vision that you have for the country. And so that is why I have spent so much time over the last 22 months. It's pretty much been my sole focus to become wealthy, to become someone who others can look up to become someone who is worthy of leading a revolution against these traitors. And when I say a revolution, I mean a peaceful one where we are empowered, where we empower those weaker than us. Because that is one of our goals as humans, as people, as children of God, of nature, is that we need to take care of those weaker than us. Think about this in terms of if you see an ant or a bug flying around in your room, you have a tremendous amount of power over that creature. Whether you kill it, whether you capture it and take it outside, the choice is yours. But that's power. And the people in power right now are selling out the American people, creating some sort of illusion that what they're doing is in the best interest of Americans, when the reality is that they are doing evil. Democrats and Republicans. I don't see any. There might be 10, I think, and it's the ones that aren't accepting AIPAC money. And it's crazy, and I should probably look up the other ones. The first ones that come off the mind are Marjorie Taylor Greene and who's the other Republican from Kentucky? We've talked about him on the podcast before. I think it's Kentucky's 4th district. Thomas Massey. We need more people who are powerful, and this is why you have to become powerful. This is why you need to make money on your own. Because if you don't, then when you get into position of power and you take money from them and you become reliant on the money that they give you, then you become reliant on them. So you have to become powerful before you're ready to get into a position of power. You need to be financially stable. You need to be able to invest in your own campaign. And this is why I give out the Indigo education for free. This is why I give it to you guys as is. Now, here's the beautiful thing that's going to be coming out very, very soon. I have just finished working on the landing page for it, is I'm going to be giving out a meditation. It's going to charge a little bit of money. It'll be about $5. Now, what you need to do is you need to sign up for the newsletter, because if you go to the link below, the Linktree link, you fill in your email and you sign up. When this lot goes live, I will be sending you an email right away. And this meditation will help you become more connected to nature, to your mission, and it will start your journey on becoming powerful. Now, there are reasons that I need to charge for this, and we will get to that in a later podcast, a later transmission, and I will explain to you it in the email as well. But for now, you need to understand that we have to rejoin with our spirit. We have to rejoin with the spark, the divine spark that lives within inside each and every one of us. We have been tainted by the food, by the water, by the news, to think, to feel a certain way through our medicines. All of it has poisoned and disconnected our minds and our bodies from our divine spark. This meditation that I will be releasing will help you get closer and reconnect to that divine spark. I promise you, if you do it, it will be a very powerful, and I will be maybe throwing in some extra stuff for some of the first time, for people who order it in the first time. So make sure you go sign up for the newsletter, click on the Linktree, sign up for the newsletter. I highly recommend it, because that is how you are going to get notified immediately. I'll give you a second. Go do it now. You don't have anything else to do. Now, the money aspect of it, I'll talk about in another podcast of why I need to charge some money. But all of this money will be used in constructing beautiful churches, beautiful architecture, that we will use to revolutionize this planet, because the infrastructure of America is crumbling. So all of that money will be used for that. I will not be using it for my own personal needs or wants. And so for all of this, not only do I appreciate it, but you're doing it for nature. You're doing it to save nature. Because without nature, we have nothing. Without breathing, we have nothing. Without our heart beating, we have nothing. Without blood running through our veins, we have nothing. So we have to save nature. And I'm telling you that this is the path forward. And over time, I will be releasing more courses, more meditations. So by getting this meditation right away, first of all, you're going to be paying the cheapest that you can. And then furthermore, the future ones, you'll be ready for. You'll be even more primed for, because they will be building off of each other. And that's what we need to do, is we need to build off of each other. We need to build together. I can't do this alone. It's not possible. We have to come together. We have to all realign with that divine spark that lives within all of us, so that we can save this planet, so we can leave the world better for our children and our children's children. And I'm telling you that this meditation, $5, don't drink your coffee one day. One day. And this will create a chain reaction, a domino effect that will save the world. And I know that's difficult to believe. But in order for you to find out, you're going to need to sign up for the newsletter. And you'll need to purchase the meditation when it comes out very soon. And if you don't believe me, feel free to shoot me a message. And if you don't feel like shooting a message to me in the third dimension, then we will have a talk about it whenever I see you in the sixth dimension.